Hello, cuties and sweeties. We're back with some more farming. Very easy dailies today. I'm very happy. Just 10 grenade kills, 60 SMG kills. I'm not even going to try to get this one. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, whatever. And then 6 battles. Actually, this would probably be pretty easy with planes. So now that I think about it. Because, like, statistically, I should be able to get 1 plane kill per battle. Ah, that's probably doable, maybe. It just depends on things. The other ones are guarantees, and that's what I like. So, we're gonna go jump in here. I'm still so depressed about the battle pass leaving. It kills me every time because I'm like, man, I coulda had my shit right. This is a BR2 weapon, but we don't really need it. I didn't realize I already had a thing from this event. What? How do I have that? Or do I have it? I don't think I do. I think it's just telling me what it costs. So it's BR2. It's sexy. Is it only 20 round mag? It is. Ugh. Oh, it lets you try it out. Isn't that sweet? Yeah, let's see how disgusting it is before we invest. It looks funky. It's taking up 30% of my screen. Yeah, I don't really like it. But the hit power is strong. And I think I like it more than this other shit. So I guess we'll go with it. Yeah, I don't have it yet. Okay. Alright, so nade kills and SMGs. Alright. Should be easy enough. We're gonna keep listening to that thing, the biosemiotics on Essentia Foundation. We're at the part where I just started over at the most recent part called We Need to Feel Again. So that's cool. Check it out.
That's the only way that we will survive, is through acknowledging that most of our so-called rationality, most of our so-called science and technology, and almost all of our government and governance is being driven by, at this point, dysbiosis in our world, in our existence, and the only way to access that is through feeling. And in Asher Walden's work on the symbiotic ecology in the imaginal realms, right? He's talking about psychedelic experience, and we meet all these other creatures, and if we are not able to acknowledge this pathology, these invisible realms, and to make peace,
Look at him go.
Our relations, we must meet our own fear. We must meet our own feeling and sense of inadequacy, which makes us strive for never having enough. Right? We can never have enough in our current culture. And what we find when we get to a moment of sufficiency is sufficiency not through being Rambo, but through our network of relations, creating an ecology, a habitat, both through our family.
Why's my dude not going over there?
But also being able to eat from our surroundings, having nowhere to get clean water, know where we can make our own electricity, know where we can have plants and develop intergenerational projects of food forests, permaculture, eco-villages, all of this.
Oh, I forgot to boost this audio. Let me do that real quick. As soon as I started hearing stuff exploding.
Allow us to relax this
No, come on.
that we have to prepare for the apocalypse all the time, which is burdening every human being's consciousness, and actually all the other organisms too, because we're mowing down the Amazon, we're mowing down, I just read Jean-Baptiste Ferros's book, More and More and More, about energy symbiosis, where we have never gone through an energy transition. We're using more wood than ever, more coal than ever, more oil and gas. And so going to renewables is not going to solve the storage. We need to reduce the amount of waste in our society.
Ah!
The invention of pollution needs to also have a cap. The end of pollution.
Yeah. I want to zoom out with you, like, to the sort of really high metaphysical level.
Oh shit.
Hearing you talk, and there's a lot of things that I think. First of all, I have this fascination through reading your work, but also my own research into sort of biology, having interviewed Michael Levin, for instance, on how we can be inspired in when you talk about the inhale and the exhale, sort of, and you could also say sort of this boundary we have to somehow keep up. You know, evolution has taught us in my own world to sort of keep my models going. My default mode network helps me to sit here now with you, have this conversation at the same time.
What? I can spawn in the fucking middle of the map? No.
So I mean, this constant search of sort of models that I've built up and sort of strengthen my membrane and sort of being porous and breathing. It's this dance, and cells are very good at it. Sort of they know how to just do it, and sometimes
Billions
not.
of years of practice.
And it's super interesting. But zooming out, this taps also, of course, into the director of our foundation, Bernardo Cassim's work on seeing sort of the universe, a mind at large, that dissociates itself.
Bro, what a fucked up
into
match.
alters. The metaphor is, of course, cells. Sort of like it's the first time that sort of entropically we see sort of chemicals, a bunch of chemicals that say, okay, we're going to do this in membrane, and now there's an inside and outside. It was just this entropic soup. And somehow we're sitting here as sort of two cells, a build-up of cells, and we're in this constant dance. So I'm sort of curious at your sort of end ontology on all of this. Do you also suppose a mind at large that somehow does this? And you already gave us a lot of tips on how to dance, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are. These are sort of my philosophical reflections on hearing you talk.
So to ask you another question back, I'm curious how you or
Oh shit.
sort of sees this mind at large. What are the contours of it? Does it breathe? Is it Parmenidean or Heraclitan? Is it processual?
That's super interesting. The first thing I'd say is that it is not self-aware. It is not, how Bernardo would call it, cognitive as we are, which helped me. But I think this would be a great conversation between you and Bernardo. Me personally, what really helped me was, I have a Christian background, and reading Carl Gustav Jung's Answer to Job is like the most important book I read. It was a tip by Bernardo who said I should read it, and it was like a complete upside down of how I understood sort of the book of Job in the Bible, which sort of in my Dutch Reformed upbringing was told like the story of God ways are mysterious, right? Mm-hmm. God has this master plan, and it involves suffering, and who are we to call out God for the suffering we have to endure? And then Jung says, no, Job is an incarnated being who has this sort of experience of the suffering that Yahweh and the story himself does not have. And even it's pure blasphemy if you're like what Jung does, because he says Yahweh is not aware. He's not aware of what he's doing. Even in the story, Satan, who sort of he comes up with the whole deal with God to give the suffering to Job, inflicted on Job. Is even Satan is more aware of what's happening in the creation than Yahweh in this story. And so I'd say I'm much on that Jung reading, that there is this sort of mind at large, sort of this oneness that I do think is in some sense conscious, but very different than we. And it needs us to report back. And I mean, a lot of religious traditions talk about sort of the divine incarnating into this sort of dance of existence. And to me it's meaningful because now my suffering, my subjective experience of the world has meaning, because it has meaning to give back to the universe, to just cry out sometimes. I guess that's my ontology. I don't know.
Sure,
if it helps.
Thanks for sharing.
It's an answer to your question.
Yeah, so when you said, there's this reporting back, I think that's a really important aspect. How do we report back? What are ways that we take time on a regular basis to report back, and what does that mean and look like? Catholicism, part of it's confession. And confession isn't just
Damn.
words and deeds. It's also the emotion.
That
It's
sucks.
also feeling the things that are keeping us back, that we're hating ourselves for. It's the guilt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I have a Catholic mother, so I know a little bit about this. And this notion of guilt and I'm wrong, and that you have to whip yourself,
Yeah.
for your horrible deeds, and the idea that that's not going to actually let you evolve further. That's going to keep you in a stuck model.
Yeah.
And I think that we have exported this suffering to the world, like this stuck model of I have to be guilty for all these things, which is keeping us in these stuck patterns of the sides.
Come on, bro, just crash.
Yeah.
To just modulate to Buddhism, right? There's this notion of the Four Noble Truths, and so suffering is non-optional, part of existence for all living beings as far as
Oh, come on.
all imaginable beings, which are
Damn, you
beings,
fucked me.
right, rather than oneness. As long as you have a differentiated consciousness in any such way, even if consciousness is intertwined and
Here,
not
let me run that back.
part of existence for all living beings as far as all incarnate beings, all imaginable beings, which are beings, right, rather than oneness. As long as you have a differentiated consciousness in any such way, even if consciousness is intertwined and interdependent, as long as you have any sort of differentiation into a sense of self, there's suffering. You have maybe imaginal realms where suffering has different subtleties and layers. But we are incarnated on this planet, and instead of seeing this planet as a piece of bullshit that we're supposed to transcend, or it's not important, or it's a lesson or a task, which are all delay and distantiation things. It's all they're all tactics to not feel, to not confront ourselves with the preciousness and the beauty of what is here now.
Yeah.
And these are all, that's Satan for me. That's, that's the sin.
Whoops. Oh,
Not
fuck.
being able to value and cherish and care for the life and what we are given. It's a rejection of now and here. It's a rejection of being, and it's a hating, in fact, of incarnation. It's a hating. And I think that is an absolute mistake, because that will never produce a society of peace or of love or of happiness in any of these ways. But least of all, will it create a society with meaning? Because if we reject actively, and we're actively spending so much energy rejecting reality as it shows up to us, our unfelt, that is allowing us maybe 1, 5, 10% max of being
See ya.
who we could be.
Oh, what the hell?
Right, and responding because we're afraid.
What the
all
fuck just
time,
happened?
Because we think it doesn't matter. So it's a priori rejection of reality as it's showing up to us. And in Buddhism, they say, if you have to suffer, make it beautiful. Devote it for something greater. And understand when you have correct understanding of our interdependency, of our
Damn it.
interdependent
Yeah, that was bad.
co-arising, then you know that your destiny, your salvation, is bound up with the salvation of all living beings everywhere in all time, seen and unseen in all possible realms and dimensions. And once you're there, the present moment is everything, and as intense as the emotions are, the feelings, you feel them. Because you realize that not feeling them would create more suffering. And then, this is like pro tip, right? Bonus level, to create beauty out of the suffering, right? To create beautiful works of art, to create